The knock didn't come like a knock. It was more like a pulse, low, resonant, like something massive had just stepped too close to my reality. I was outside, splitting firewood in the freezing dusk, the scent of pine and smoke in the air, when the silence fractured. From the tree line came a shimmer, like heat rising off asphalt, but it was below freezing. Then it moved. My instincts, long buried under years of peace, snapped awake. I grabbed the hatchet, held it low. What stepped out wasn't human. Tall, wrapped in some kind of stealth mesh that flickered with every movement, it limped toward me, carrying something bundled in both arms. Its body bled thick black ichor, and the way it moved told me this wasn't an ambush. This was desperation. When it reached me, it knelt slowly and unwrapped its burden. Two creatures, small, feline reptilian hybrids, blinked up at me with molten gold eyes. They clung to each other like pups to a dying mother. I didn't understand until it removed its helmet. Its face was scarred, alien, but oddly noble. Then, in a guttural, labored voice, it spoke in near-perfect English. "Protect all them." And then it collapsed. I didn't move for a long time. Snow started to fall. The cubs whimpered, nudging their unconscious guardian. I didn't know who they were, what species they came from, or why the hell it trusted me. But something in those tiny eyes, it struck something deep. Old instincts flared, not the soldiers, but the humans. I gathered the cubs and the fallen creature and carried them inside. The cabin, once my fortress of solitude, had just become a sanctuary. I had no idea that by saying nothing and acting anyway, I'd just declared war on something far, far bigger than me. They weren't just cubs, they were something else entirely. Ruck, the bigger one, was curious but cautious, constantly watching me with those golden eyes, memorizing every move I made. Yari, smaller and twitchier, clung to her brother and hissed if I got too close. I gave them space. They didn't eat the food I cooked, steak, stew, nothing worked, until I left a raw rabbit outside their room. It was gone in minutes, bones and all. I heard crunching like gravel under boot. Whatever they were built to hunt. Their claws could carve through wood. One time I caught Ruck staring at my old Marine Corps knife on the wall. Next day, he mimicked the way I held an axe, the stance, the grip. I didn't teach him. He watched and learned. They both did. I left old VHS tapes running, documentaries, war footage, nature shows. I caught them mimicking the voices. "Sir," Ruck said one morning, a rough mimic of a drill sergeant. I laughed, and something shifted in his face. He liked it. Recognition. Approval. But every night was the same. They'd stare through the frosted window, toward the stars, ears twitching. They were waiting for something. A signal. A rescue. Or maybe, something worse. I reinforced the cellar, set up motion sensors in the woods, and dusted off old habits. It was like muscle memory, paranoia turned routine. I wasn't just playing caretaker. I was preparing for something I couldn't explain yet. One night, I woke to a sound, Yari crying, a low, trilling sound like a wounded bird. I sat with her until she fell asleep, curled against my side like a puppy. That was the night I realized they weren't just aliens. They were children. And now, they were mine to protect. They weren't just cubs, they were something else entirely. Ruck, the bigger one, was curious but cautious, constantly watching me with those golden eyes, memorizing every move I made. Yari, smaller and twitchier, clung to her brother and hissed if I got too close. I gave them space. They didn't eat the food I cooked, steak, stew, nothing worked, until I left a raw rabbit outside their room. It was gone in minutes, bones and all. I heard crunching like gravel under boot. Whatever they were built to hunt. Their claws could carve through wood. One time I caught Ruck staring at my old Marine Corps knife on the wall. Next day, he mimicked the way I held an axe, the stance, the grip. I didn't teach him. He watched and learned. They both did. I left old VHS tapes running, documentaries, war footage, nature shows. I caught them mimicking the voices. "Sir," Ruck said one morning, a rough mimic of a drill sergeant. I laughed, and something shifted in his face. He liked it. Recognition. Approval. But every night was the same. They'd stare through the frosted window, toward the stars, ears twitching. They were waiting for something. A signal. A rescue. Or maybe, something worse. I reinforced the cellar, set up motion sensors in the woods, and dusted off old habits. It was like muscle memory, paranoia turned routine. I wasn't just playing caretaker. I was preparing for something I couldn't explain yet. One night, I woke to a sound, Yari crying, a low, trilling sound like a wounded bird. I sat with her until she fell asleep, curled against my side like a puppy. That was the night I realized they weren't just aliens. They were children. And now, they were mine to protect. The northern lights danced that night, swirling in ribbons of green and violet above the treetops, but something about them felt off. Too linear. Too rhythmic. I stepped outside, snow crunching under my boots, and that's when I saw them, 3 perfectly spaced glows in the sky, descending fast. Not stars. Not satellites. Ships. Sleek, black, silent. My breath caught. I ran back inside and grabbed my old rifle from above the mantel. Not that it would do much, but holding it made my hand steadier. The motion sensors out front beeped once, then died. Static burst across my small monitor screen. The forest fell silent, like even the animals were hiding. I grabbed Ruck and Yari, who were already growling low, hackles raised, and dragged them into the cellar. Reinforced steel door, old military rations, backup power, enough for a siege, I'd hoped. I sealed it and waited, heartbeat pounding like a war drum. Then it landed. I heard the snow hiss beneath its thrusters. Heard the whine as the hatch opened. And then, footsteps. Heavy. Four-legged. Clawed. But when it stepped close to the house, the cubs whimpered in unison. They knew what it was. I looked at them, trembling. "Who are they?" I whispered. Ruck didn't answer with words, just a stare, hollow and terrified. I peeked through the hidden scope slot I'd built into the floorboards years ago. What I saw wasn't like the predator who brought them here. It was worse, taller, encased in dark, chitinous armor that seemed to ride in the cold air. Its face had mandibles, twitching like antennae. It scanned the cabin with a device and growled something guttural. The cubs shrank back. That's when I realized these weren't rescuers. They were hunters. And we were prey. I never thought I'd train anything again, let alone aliens. But war has a way of finding old soldiers, even in the frozen corners of Earth. After that first contact with the hunter, I knew hiding wasn't enough. They would come back. And next time, they wouldn't scan, they'd destroy. The cubs, Ruck and Yari, were fast, strong, and terrifyingly intelligent, but they had no discipline. No tactics. Just instincts. And instincts alone don't win battles. So, I did what I knew. I trained them. At dawn, we ran drills in the snow. I set up targets made of old logs and soda cans. I taught them hand signals, how to move as one, how to flank and fall back. Ruck picked it up faster than most recruits I'd had in the Corps. Yari was more cautious but deadly with precision. I dug out old claymores, taught them how to make tripwires from fishing line and crude explosives from fertilizer. They watched, absorbed, and adapted. It wasn't just tactics. I taught them how to think under fire, how to anticipate the enemy, how to fight dirty. The kind of lessons you don't get from manuals, lessons carved from mistakes and soaked in blood. But most of all, I taught them why we fight. Not for hate. Not for victory. For each other. We shared meals, stories, even laughs. I found myself caring more than I meant to. The cubs weren't just students, they were my responsibility. Maybe more. Pack. family. And as the snow began to melt and the days grew longer, I knew one thing: when the enemy came back, they wouldn't find helpless prey. They'd find a pack ready to bite back. Trained by the last man on earth they should have left alone. It was just past midnight when I felt it, an old ache in my bones, like something deep inside me recognized a presence before my mind could catch up. The cub stirred too, ears twitching. I stepped outside, rifle in hand, and there she stood at the edge of the tree line. Tall, broad-shouldered, cloaked in shadow, her silhouette shimmered as she deactivated the camouflage. It was her. The original predator. The one who left them with me. Only this time, she wasn't wounded. She was whole. And she wasn't alone. Behind her, sleek shapes moved in the darkness. Smaller ships hovered silently, blending into the forest. Warriors stood watch at the perimeter, armed but not aiming. The matriarch approached slowly, eyes locked on mine. The cubs ran past me, Ruck with a bark-like shout, Yari squealing something in their tongue. They threw themselves at her, and she knelt, wrapping them in her arms. Even through all that armor, I saw it, a tremble. Relief. Love. Then she looked at me. I expected a challenge, maybe even a threat. Instead, she stepped forward, placed a clawed hand over her chest, and bowed. They are different now, she said in halting English. Not cubs. Warriors. Yours and mine. Her voice was a growl, but there was something else there, respect. Maybe even gratitude. I glanced past her at the ships and saw faces, parents, elders, children. They weren't a strike force. They were a fleet of survivors. A diaspora. I had trained the first of their resistance. She offered me something then, a command, a title, something ceremonial in her culture. I declined. I had no desire for medals. But I didn't stop her when she called me what they now whispered among themselves, Alpha. The invasion came at dawn, silent and swift. The snow still clung to the treetops, melting under the early sun, when the sky turned black with enemy ships. Not scouts this time. Warships. Dozens. Maybe more. The enemy had returned, and they weren't looking for stragglers, they wanted extermination. We didn't wait for them to land. We'd already prepared the battlefield. Sky Ridge became our stronghold. High ground, thick trees, natural choke points, I'd picked it years ago for hunting elk. Now, it was a killing field. The cubs, no, warriors, moved like shadows through the trees. Ruck led a squad of young predators I barely recognized anymore, armor-plated, eyes fierce, disciplined. Yari had become something even more dangerous, quiet, calculating, precise. She oversaw traps and long-range ambushes like she'd been born for it. The matriarch stood at my side as the first wave hit. The enemy dropped in with fire and metal, hissing through their alien tongues, confident in their superiority. But they didn't understand what they were facing. We fought like ghosts. Hit and vanished. IEDs blew legs off their mechs. Tripwires sliced into them mid-charge. We lured them into kill boxes, into flame pits, into silence. They thought us primitives. They thought wrong. I fought beside them, my old rifle barking fire and memory. I watched Ruck slam an enemy commander into a tree so hard the bark exploded. I saw Yari detonate a ravine, burying half a platoon under ice and rock. And for the first time, I saw fear in the eyes of our enemies. By dusk, Sky Ridge still stood. Not untouched, but unconquered. And the message was clear: we weren't prey. Not anymore. We were the storm. The old Alpha and his pack had drawn blood. And the galaxy had just changed forever.